G'day everybody, what we're going to do is put together a ZF5HP19 transmission. The first thing I'm going to do is put together the tower assembly and then put it in as one piece. So you can see I've got the Simpson gear set down the bottom. There's the bearing set which goes on first, washer, a bearing, and then a washer that goes over the top. On the ring gear, which sits around these sprockets, there's a bearing set again which sits on the top of it. I'm going to gently put that on and put that down, and then I'm going to put on the F clutch. Best way I've found to put a lot of these in is you obviously need to turn and give them a bit of a jiggle. But this one tends to be done best in your hands rather than on a stand. There we go. And once that's together, what's important that you check is with a pick tool, making sure all the clutch pack is aligned correctly. The way to do that is to get a pick tool in through these windows here, and you can see how I can move the whole clutch pack together. If I had a big gap in there like that, and I was unable to move all of them together, then it would mean that they're not actually aligned properly, and I'd have to just do a little bit more work to get everything together properly. Now that I've got that on, I'm going to put on the DG clutch assembly, and that just slots straight over the top, and I can just give that a bit of a jiggle, and on she goes. It's obvious that when actually everything goes in together and the clutches are aligned properly, in that before it actually gets there it won't spin that well because it's actually resting on one of the clutch discs. As soon as it goes down and seats properly, you hear it go donk, and it actually goes against the bearings quite nicely, and then it'll rotate very easily. As well as that, we can obviously look through these windows like we did before and check that everything is okay. Now that that's all together, we're going to put everything that we've assembled now into the casing. With the casing, you'll notice that at the back here I don't have the output assembly on. That's so I can actually reach through here and actually put this down nicely together. So hold everything together, make sure nothing comes apart with those clutches. Put it in one end, and then slowly and carefully move it all the way down. Now you need to be careful here. Like I mentioned before, this is where the oil flow is for the clutches. They will go into these holes here, and all of this stuff here and underneath on the inside of this casing part is very finely machined, so it's important that you're careful, don't scratch those or damage them, otherwise you're not going to get proper oil flow to your clutches. So it gets quite tight here, so you may need just a bit of a jiggle. Sometimes it may be a bit difficult because the park brake is engaged, so move it out of park, just into another gear. And in she goes. Torquing procedure for these Torx bolts is quite specific in the ZF manual, and it's to ensure that you get really good contact between that DG clutch assembly and the transmission casing, so you don't get any oil leakage. I won't actually do it now just to save some time because it's a little bit involved, but the procedure is to put 30 on the centre, then 15 on the outer two. then 63 in the centre, and then go back and put 30 on the outer two, and then go back and put 63 on the outer. So I'll just make sure these are relatively tight so it doesn't fall out, but I'm not going to torque them correctly. Now I'm just going to stand the transmission on its end and fit the output assembly. Now the output assembly, the first thing that's going to go on is the shim, which is the thing that adjusts the longitudinal play of the transmission. The nice thing about this is just a O-ring here. You can just line everything up, line up the bolt holes, and just push it down. Now I'm not going to put in all of the bolts just to save some time, and I'm not going to torque them, so I just want to show. How everything fits together. Now you notice that there isn't a seal in the back there. I've just removed that because I've been playing with the transmission. Obviously before putting this in a car that would obviously be replaced. Now what I'm going to do is turn it over and sit it on the output flange and put in the rest of the components. Right, the first thing that's going to go in is this thing called the cup. There's a bearing set that goes down inside, and then we've got the ring gear for the Raveno set. Now this is steel, it's fairly heavy, so hold it on the outside like this and just gently lower it. Additionally, there's obviously a bearing set that sits in there, and now what I'm going to do is put in the Raveno set. Like when you pulled everything out, it's best to hook your fingers in underneath here so you don't drop it. It's fairly heavy. There we go. Now once that's in, we're going to put in these three pieces. The first one is the smaller of the two ring gears, which is the big outer piece. There's the bearing set that sits on top of that. Now got this one. This is the inner spline for the A clutch. And this spline here at the bottom actually runs into the larger of the two sun gears for the Raveno set. The next piece that goes in is this one. This is the inner spline for the E clutch, and this spline here runs down to the actual planet carrier, so that's actually locking into the planet carrier for the Raveno set. There are two bearings sets, one on either side, so make sure they're in there before you put it in. And now we've got all those pieces in. Now what we're going to do is put the remainder of those pieces that were left together for the whole oil pump assembly, and then we're going to put them in there as one piece. First thing I'm going to do is just get our oil pump assembly got our thrust bearing there, make sure that's on. We've got our B clutch here, we've got that shim that goes on. You can either put that on there or stick it with some petroleum jelly to that side, whatever works for you. This is also quite tight, so just be nice and gentle as you put it on. You rotate it to align those clutches. There we go. Again, like we did on the other clutches, just going to get our pick tool in here. This is actually aligning the C clutch. Make sure everything's aligned correctly. If that's all good, now we're going to put in the input shaft. The input shaft has obviously got the A and the E clutch on this side. It's a thrust bearing, so that can only go one way. So turn that over, put that in there. And now we're going to put in the input shaft. And again, we're just going to rotate as required to align the clutches, and then we can just go to these windows here and check that everything is okay. Once that's all on, what we're going to do now is turn this over, making sure all those clutches stay together. To fit this all as one piece requires a special ZF tool, because if I just pick this up by the oil pump, that would just slip straight off the top. What I want to do is actually hold it by the input shaft and lift it up. Now I can't just do that with my fingers, so the tool that I've made for this is a 22mm shaft. Just got a piece of MDF, drilled a 22mm hole in it, cut it in half, and then just put a few notches on the sides of it so the clamp can hold onto it okay. And then what I'm going to do is just clamp this together. Make that as tight as you can. Now you can see I can actually lift that quite happily. I can spin so the oil pump and B clutch spin independently of the A and E clutch underneath it, which is what's connected to the input shaft. Now what I'm going to do is lift this whole thing up and plonk it in the transmission as one piece. When I lift this up and put it in, I'm going to look at these oil pump holes and also the bolt holes as I lower everything down and make sure everything is aligned correctly. Also, you can see from here what I'm trying to do is actually have these slots here align with those. So that'll make that a little bit easier. If I actually move that into park, it'll lock the bottom gear so they can't actually turn, and that'll actually make things a little bit easier. So what I'm doing is just going to align those there, and once bolt holes, oil pump, etc. are aligned, which you can see from the top, I'm just going to turn the tool to allow all those clutches to align. And as you can hear, when they align, they just clunk into place. Now you can see that this part here of the B clutch is aligned here with this piece, which is what we want. Now it isn't actually fully down, but the O-ring at the top in here is the thing that's stopping it going any further. So what I'm going to do is just push and rotate, and you can see now everything just clicks into place very nicely. Now, at the top, I can just remove the tool, put in my 9 Torx bolts around the outside, and roll together again.